Philip, what were you have any intentions you would like to try to accomplish today in this chat room?
Not really. I mean, all I have is I can tell what we've done in the last 8 years with this little company that I'm sitting in right now, and what we think we want to do in the future. And if then somebody has any questions, then I can do my worst to answer them. Okay, that's great. So we were thinking that if you wanted to just kind of, I'll begin by just giving you a brief introduction. I was going to just let them know you're the CEO of Game Composites LLC. You're based in Bentonville, Arkansas. You're the developer of the GB1 Gamebird aircraft, and then turn it over to you. And first of all, is that intro okay, or would you like me to change that? No, that's fine. That'll be all right, yeah. So just another question. I got a couple of slides. How do I get them on the screen then? Just bring them up when you're going to want to do a share screen. Yeah, where's that? Oh, here, share screen. Okay, good. Found the button now. Awesome. Let me just try that real quick, okay? Please. So, got it. Yep, and then you can put that in presentation mode, or you can leave it like that, however you're more comfortable.
If you can put in presentation mode, that looks a lot better, yeah.
Do you see that full screen now, or do you see all the rest of the bits and bobs on my screen?
Nope, just the slide.
Okay, awesome, cool. Yep, good, that'll do. That's all I want. And then stop share. Okay, yeah, it's kind of even self-explanatory. All right, not too bad. Of course, it never works smoothly when you need it to, but now it's working great. Yeah. So, anyway, they were suggesting that we take about 5, maybe at the most 10 minutes if you wanted to go through some things and talk about some things, and then basically we would open it up to Q&A, where people are going to, they're all going to be muted except for you and I and Jim, and so they're going to submit their questions or comments through chat, and then I'll feed those to you to be able to. Okay. All right. All right. Good. Well, I'm excited to hear about this. Learn more about what the work that you're doing here. Yeah. Hopefully, it's not too exciting. I'm sure it will be. This is a great community. Have you had a chance to check out any of the other events or things that are going on for Agility Prime since it started this week? No, I've been tied up all the time from 7 to 7 so far. So. Wow. This is also kind of a gap between two things, so yeah, it's all right. Well, we appreciate you coming in, and hopefully it'll bring you and your company some good exposure. I can tell you from the other events and chat rooms that I've participated in that there's a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of excitement, a lot of interest in all aspects of the industry, and so I think it's going to be a really great group here. Okay, sounds good. We should be releasing hopefully in just a few minutes to come and join us. Bueno. So where are you based out of? Right now, are you in Arkansas or are you somewhere else? No, I live in Bentonville, and the good thing about this kind of pandemic is that I don't have to go anywhere else right now. Yeah. And I had quite a busy plan, but now I can actually focus on work, which is pretty nice for a change. Yeah, that's great. Why are you located there? Is there a strategic reason for being there? Yeah, I mean, we started the business in England. That's all part of the slides in a minute. And then Stuart and I'm German originally. And then a year into this English adventure, both Stuart and I agreed we don't want to be in England for any significant amount of time, please. And then the choice was England or Germany. And I've lived in Germany for 38 years of my life, so I've seen most of this now. And I'm ready for the US, and I like to fly all kinds of things. And if you want to fly, then the US is the place to be. And we moved here 3.5 years ago, and no regrets so far. That's awesome. Well, glad you could make it out. What was so bad about England? It would be easier to say what's not so bad. I mean, it's really? So you start with the weather and go on over fuel prices and the airspace structure, how business is viewed, how business friendly the environment is, what kind of people you get to actually do any kind of work, and list goes on. And wow. Even like I said, I lived in Germany. I've had my experiences there, run 2 businesses there, and England was worth to get started, but overall I'm quite glad we went elsewhere. And this particular elsewhere Arkansas because Stuart is from here. He wanted to have it on his home soil. And right now, I mean, it's a beautiful part of the country. We're for kind of equal space to any coast. So with the game bird, I'm within 5 hours, I'm in Miami, and 5.5 hours, I'm in Los Angeles. And in 2.5 hours, I'm in Oshkosh. That happens once a year. So it's pretty cool. And with three Fortune 50 companies in this little Midwestern town, we have lots of connections from our local airport all over the world, literally. So there's 4 flights to DFW daily. And it's the quality of living here is pretty cool. Because there are so big companies, namely Walmart, and they give back a lot. So if there's a lot of stuff here that you wouldn't expect in a small Midwestern town. It's the second most bike-friendly town in the US after Portland.
Oh,
so it's and we, you know, have hired. We started here with 2 people in a big empty building. Meanwhile, we were 51 2 weeks ago, and it's growing. Demand is growing. So yeah, life is good.
That's awesome. Congratulations on your growth. It's not an easy thing to achieve.
Yeah, well, if you've got nothing else to do, you might as well get your job done.
That's funny.
So, it's pretty good so far. And Arkansas generally is more, Northwest Arkansas has been Walmart and poultry more than anything. So everybody that comes to work here and does composite work or whatever else is kind of doomed to stay with us because there aren't a lot of alternatives, which is good.
Oh,
And so the job hopping that happens in California or places like this just doesn't exist here, and that gives us a bit more ability to plan with the stuff. And the guys, they know we're here to stay. So
yeah. I don't understand why companies are so quick to want to situate in a place like California or some of the places where everything is just so expensive.
yeah.
And it just doesn't make any sense to me. There's so many other parts of the country that, yeah.
Yes, I mean, why did Boeing locate in the middle of nothing like 50, 60 years ago? They had their reasons, and because it worked, it's probably weren't very dumb reasons either. And then moving into like an epicenter where you have to pay always more to keep your guys coming through the door every morning, that's not very helpful, I think.
Yeah, and the competition is intense. So yeah, it looks like we have 1 minute before they send everybody to the breakout. So we should see quite a few people joining us here. Just a few minutes.
Okay.
Excuse me for 1 second.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Jen, do you mind asking Nate to stop yelling? I can hear what we got here. Hey, Jim, can you hear us okay?
Sure can.
Okay, excellent. It appears that, at least on my computer here, the chat window, the notifications pop up.
I don't have any, but it looks very peaceful on my screen.
That's exactly how we want it to look. Peaceful.
Okay, sweet.
Okay. Looks like they're just starting to branch out right now, it looks like.
Okay.
So I'm excited to hear about your company. I'm not really familiar with your product, but Cirrus is up in. I'm in Minnesota myself, and Cirrus Aircraft is up in Duluth, Minnesota, which is just north of Minneapolis here, and be curious to find out how your 2 aircraft are similar or different.
Pretty similar. I mean, what they make is kind of the SUV, and what we make is the Formula One car.
Okay.
But we make very cheap Formula One cars by comparison. Yeah, but it's still, if I would need to pick, I'd pick ours.
Sure. I got my private pilot's license right out of high school, and I don't fly too much anymore, but it's a passion of mine, and maybe a few more years I'd like to, teach part time and just get back in the air.
Okay.
It's one of my few more years before retirement, but I'm getting there. I'm getting a little bit closer every year. So
Yeah, good luck. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
One foot in the grave, the other one on the banana slip. I heard that before.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
But,
me too. No, I flew. I did aerobatics as a sport for 15 years now,
oh wow,
and flew various world championships, European championships, been German national champion 4 times, and got a silver medal on the world championships, and basically started with these silly airplanes when the fascination for those things started when I was a little kid.
sure.
And as I grew older, the toys just got more expensive. So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, flying's a black hole of money, isn't it? Just
yes, yeah. And in a couple of years ago, in a training camp somewhere in England, we decided if any of us would do any drugs, it would be cheaper and probably less dangerous than actually flying aerobatics, but it's just more fun.
sure, sure. You ever heard of Texas Air Aces in Houston, Texas?
No.
It's a company where individuals can go and do simulated dogfighting. So you're in one plane, another plane goes up, and you use old military trainers. I think they're T6s or something like that. Tandem seating, and got a laser on it. And you have cameras and stuff, and you go up dogfighting, and it was a lot of fun. A friend, I spent 7 years in Houston, Texas, and my friend, a friend of my mother-in-law, her son was down there actually, and just out of chance, we met up with them, and he took me out flying with him and did some acrobatics and stuff like that. That was my first time I ever done loops or barrel rolls or anything like that, and I just had the time of my life. Let me tell you, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Cool.
It amazes me that people can do all those things and not throw up, because I was doing weather for the Air Force, and I was right near the hurricane hunters, which fly through right over the storms to be able to get readings on them. And they took us for a ride through. They were trying to recruit us, and we went on this flight. I think it was a C-130, and it was real bumpy. We landed. I said, and I was sick as a dog, and I said, "Wow, what kind of a storm was that? How intense was it?" They said, "Well, we didn't even fly through a storm." So I knew right then I was not cut out for that.
Okay.
So I envy you for being able to do all these things.
I mean, you just have to be dumb enough, really. So it's an interesting game, but it leads to other things. It's quite interesting. It's never boring. If I would only do the flying, I think I'd be bored pretty quickly. But together with the engineering and the entrepreneurial part of it, it is actually pretty interesting every day.
Yeah, yeah. It looks like we're starting to have people join us here now too. Oh, he's looking for the license to fly presentation. Oh, that's the old one. Okay. We'll give it just a couple more minutes.
Okay. Yeah, no rush. Cool.
One of the challenges of this has been kind of shepherding people from one virtual event to another.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, sometimes there's a little bit of confusion with that. Okay, here they come. Hello all to everybody who is joining us. Just want to let you know we'll get started in just a minute or two. We'll just let some people are continuing to come in. So if you just be patient for a moment, we appreciate that. Jim, are you still seeing Philip at this point?
Say again?
Jim, are you seeing Philip?
Oh, did he? I just looked away for a second, and let's see here. Didn't realize he dropped. Yeah, he's still on.
What I'm going to do here is just, for now, I'm going to put it, when I speak, I'll put it on, I'm assuming that you're seeing me right now?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. So I'll speak and then we'll switch it over to Philip and put him on speaker so he'll get control of it. So we have a number of participants here. We have just a few more coming in. I just want to give it one more minute and then we'll go ahead and kick it off. Thanks, guys. Okay, why don't we go ahead and kick this off here. My name is Daryl Gibson. I'm with AFWERX Vegas, and I will be one of the facilitators today. We also have Jim Piazza with us, who's going to be a co-facilitator. And we are joined today by Philip Steinbach, and he's going to be telling us all about his company. We're going to turn it over to him. I just want to, one disclaimer I just like to say is that I don't have messed up teeth. It's just the way the video is coming across. So it's best I can do with the background. So please be gentle in your comments there. In any case, so what we're going to do is Philip has some slides he'd like to share with us. He can tell us about his company and his work. And then we're going to go into the Q&A. And I'm going to ask that you submit your questions through chat. And then we'll go ahead and get those over to Philip so that he can address those for you. This session will be about 25 minutes. And then we'll head back to the main page where you'll be able to attend any of the other sessions you would like for the next session. So with that said, I'd like to hand it over to Philip. He is Philip Steinbach. He is the CEO of Game Composites LLC. They're based in Bentonville, Bentonville, Arkansas, and they're the developer of the GB1 Game Bird. So with that said, Philip, why don't you take it away?
All right, thank you. So you all don't have to see my face so badly. I'm gonna share my screen up. And so this is the airplane that you see. That's what we are building. I'm gonna talk the first 3 to 4 minutes how we got to that place to be able to take a picture like this. This picture is actually 3 years old, and then talk what I think could be helpful in the context of what you're all doing, where we could be helpful. So as you can see, the Game Bird is an aerobatic airplane, means can fly with the wheels sticking up in the sky. So this is an actual picture. And the difference of this, so how do I get to change slides here? Here we go. I'm going through this very quick to give you a bit of the history and then talk about the rest. So we started this thing January 2013, Stuart Walton and I rented for £200 a month, rented this fantastic little container that you can see. First it was him and I, and then over the course of the next 8 months we got a couple more hands, made drawings on the computer that resemble an airplane vaguely, started designing the tools, made the tools. All of this happened then later in a disused fuel station in Lincolnshire in the middle of England, which from the outside looked like it was about to collapse. We just made a little air-conditioned, nice-looking box inside, which was just enough to build one airplane in. Here you can see various stages of the prototype build. Our engineers, on the top left picture, that's all of us sitting on an aileron. The aileron itself weighs 7 pounds. And then on the bottom right picture, that's the first airframe that we actually used for all the structure testing. Then 2015 was the first flight. In parallel, we did fatigue and damage tolerance testing, did composite material qualification, basically in conforming to these FAA requirements. The airplane is FAA and EASA certified. In 2016, we started to get out on the road with it, and we got the type certificate 2016 or 17. Showed it around. I did some air shows all over the world to see what it can do. Started selling some. And since then, we have moved to Bentonville, Arkansas, where I'm sitting right now, in this nice building that you can see in the top right image. We got various pieces of paper from various authorities. The one is a type certificate, or actually two, from EASA, which is in Europe, and FAA, which is in the US. And then last year we got the production certificate, which you also need if you want to sell something to other people. Then in parallel, I did all the staff training, because Arkansas isn't really a hotbed of composite manufacturing. So we hired people and trained them from scratch. These are all components of the first 5 airplanes that you need to, that we had to demonstrate compliance to the FAA MIDO. Yeah, we've got some more bits ready here. The red and white airplane is the first airplane that we produced in Arkansas. Then last year I sold airplanes to 2 teams. Actually, this year to a 3rd one. Then one of the people sitting in front of me in the red airplane in this image on the top left is Sean Tucker, which you might or might not have heard of. He's an airshow guy. We're just right now building 7 airplanes for him. And then I sold 7 airplanes to the Chilean Air Force. They're using this to for a demonstration team, which is kind of the Chilean version of the Blue Angels of the Thunderbirds, scaled down to the Chilean budget that they have instead of F-16s or F-18s. And yeah, today we are producing 1.5 airplanes a month with a crew of 42 people. We are right now. We're pretty stable. Our production cost for airplane actually allows us to have a 30% margin on an airplane like this, which is normally unheard of in general aviation. That is the main reason why I'm doing this. I personally enjoy aerobatics. I fly since I'm a kid, compete and fly these kind of toys since I can afford them. But now that we've gone through those certification processes, we're actually set up to do low cost, like mid-volume composite manufacturing. And this airplane is kind of a nice business card to gather attention. Where this takes us from here is open. We're in a very nice spot here financially. We're in a very nice spot in the country, actually. Bentonville, Arkansas is a very nice place to live. We have all kinds of opportunities to expand. And this is pretty much what I wanted to say up to this point. And if you have any questions, then please ask me.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you, Philip. We do have some questions, and I have one too. We were speaking, you and I, before this began, about your location being based there in Bentonville, Arkansas. Can you talk a little bit about, for people out there who are either have established their company and are thinking about possibly relocating, or just looking for a location, or are curious about why you're located there? Can you talk strategically about why you decided to locate there, which is not a typical place for most businesses?
No, so I mean, most of you guys might have heard of Walmart eventually, and my business partner Stuart is one of the family members that owns Walmart to a large percentage. Walmart was founded in Bentonville years ago by his granddad. Stuart and I met 10 years ago. I sold him 2 airplanes, and then we decided to start this business together. When we decided that England is not the place to stay with this project, we had the choice of heading east to Germany, where I come from, or heading west to the US, where aviation was born, and aviation is alive and well, and better than anywhere else in the world. And I said, I've seen Germany, let's go west. So long story short, we moved to Bentonville because it's Stuart's home soil. Northwest Arkansas in particular is developing at a really breathtaking pace. I was here the first time 8 or 9 years ago, and it's very difficult to recognize the place now by comparison. It's growing incredibly fast. The incubator has been Walmart, Tyson Food, and JB Hunt. But meanwhile, this is all gathering momentum. All of those families are giving back to the community in a pretty spectacular way. If you come in from any direction, nobody who has been here has expected what he actually gets to see here, whether it's the restaurants or the generally the quality of life or the development of the airfield here where we are located. We got international connections to through our airfield XNA, which is 10 minutes by car from here. So it's very easy to commute to any place in the US any time of the day. And it's Arkansas itself makes big efforts in being competitive. So there's very good rates if you set up a business here. And we got all the political support that we could ever wish for. And it's and generally, like I said earlier on, it's a very nice place to live. The tornadoes don't make it here. They stop in Oklahoma. Most of them stay in Oklahoma and die there, which is a good place for them. It's very green. You can drive 2 hours to the west. If you like yellow, then it turns yellow. If you like, and like I said, we're very much in the middle. So everything is very much in reach. With the game bird, within 5 hours I am in Miami, 5.5 hours I'm in Los Angeles, 2 hours to Oshkosh. So it's pretty neat.
That's great. So one of the questions that just came in was about your manufacturing techniques, and in transitioning from being on the development side now to going to more the high volume, low cost manufacturing. How has that transition been for you, and how have you had to change your manufacturing approach to be able to meet that demand?
The manufacturing technology is actually very old. There's nothing new that we invented on this at all. All we did is proceduralize it, and through the proceduralization, sell it to the FAA. Basically present it to them in little digestible bits, and over the 2 years of the conformity program, made friends with it. When you want to manufacture something, the FAA needs to buy off on it. So essentially our work instructions, our documentation needs to be such that somebody who has never seen composite can comfortably look at the work instruction and say, I buy off a part or a assembly based on that work instruction, because that work instruction enables me to inspect that part and make sure it's worthy, or it does what it's supposed to do, in short.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So it's really been a big documentation exercise, and I've been around those houses before. This is my third type certification project, and the third time I set up a company, including the manufacturing behind it. And I've learned most of that in Germany. And yeah, we're really the only thing that we do new is that it's not even new. I mean, we just put more emphasis on the training of our team. That's probably the thing. It's not hiring a bunch of warm bodies and hoping that they figure something out. Everybody who comes in goes through a training program, which sounds trivial, but obviously it isn't, looking at some of the stuff that's out there. And we've done that pretty successfully, I would say. And the guys that I hired 3.5 years ago, over 80% of them are still here.
That's great.
And actually are the backbone of the production right now.
That's excellent. So a number of questions are coming in now relative to the eVTOL orb industry, and about how some of the technologies that you've been developing could be applicable to that, or whether you've been involved in any aspect of that industry.
So we hosted 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, we hosted an event called Bentonville Up. That was Cyrus Sigari and Ben Marcus organized this, and we hosted it here on our airfield. And been in touch with various people who are in that marketplace. Some of my former employees are working for some of the probably more well-known names now. So I think I would say I keep an ear on the road for this stuff. The big numbers that are projected right now, I mean, we all hope that what we think of is going to be the next big thing. But at first, you need to prove that it works. And what we are very good at, I think, or where we can certainly help, is to come up with, let's say, affordable prototypes and streamline the design and the prototype manufacturing and the tooling design, that stuff that we can do to put that in numbers. The game bird up to the end of the type certification, including production tooling, including payroll, including the flying airplane, was $3.3 million US. And if you look at any other project that has been done in the last 20 or 30 years, look at Cirrus, look at Columbia Aircraft, you can add any number of digits, before the comma, really, and you're still not even close. So I think we have figured out a pretty efficient way to do things in a reasonable time frame.
Mm-hmm. Glenn Dawson pointed out that had you located in Oklahoma, Apparently they're offering millions of dollars in incentives, but you would have also had free wind testing with the tornadoes.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Oklahoma is 10 minutes flying time, so if I want to see a tornado, I probably get the chance to. But it's I'm quite glad that they are not at my house.
Yes. So can you talk a little bit about what makes your aircraft unique and just kind of touch on some of the key specs that differentiate it?
So the airplane itself is about as far away from eVTOL as it could be. It's essentially, without the carbon fiber, something like this could have been built in the 1930s. It's the very old concept of the lightest possible airframe with the biggest possible motor. It's designed primarily for competition aerobatics, which means it's supposed to go up and down or move in a three-dimensional cube, ideally in any direction, and being as maneuverable as possible. So in short, the airplane weighs 1,300 pounds empty, has 300 plus horsepower. At 235 knots, which is the VNE, it rotates around 450 degrees per second. That's the roll rate. It's 35 for plus minus 10 G. We had, during structure testing, we had it to plus minus 19 G. It didn't break. Aerodynamically, I had the airplane to slightly over 13 G. That's about as much as you can get, like in real life, pulling like an idiot when at VNE. That's a very interesting flight test point, in particular the negative G side of that, which feels very good for a little while. And it's, but on the other hand, other than being an aerobatic one-trick pony, we put range into the thing. It's got 81 gallons of gas. So late last year, I flew back non-stop from Idaho. That was an 1,100-mile trip that I did in 5 hours, 7 minutes, and had over 50 minutes range remaining when I landed in Bentonville. And it's got 2 seats. It's got the latest and greatest Garmin avionics in it. So it has become more of a, you know, $500 hamburger get-to tool than actually a hardcore aerobatic airplane only. So, and some of the design features make it very attractive for formation teams. Like I mentioned earlier on, I sold it to 3 formation teams, which is very nice because you've got one person to talk to, but you sell more than one airplane at a time. So from a business standpoint, pretty attractive. And our direct competition that some of you might or might not have heard of is Extra from Germany. I worked for those guys 25 years ago. And if you step from an Extra into the Game Bird, it's like stepping from a 1950s car into something that is made today. So selling those airplanes to people who are familiar with the current state of affairs, Extra, Sukhoi, Cubs, all it takes is put them in the seat, let them take off, and 30 seconds into the flight, they're usually sold. So I don't have to talk a lot to make that happen.
Mm-hmm. Have you, in development of this aircraft, have you explored battery and electronic options instead of combustion engines?
Yes, we have. So we have a contract with a big German company I'm sure you're all familiar with. What I noticed we signed that agreement 5.5 years ago. The longer we are in this, the further the goalpost moves out. So the more they get their foot wet, their feet or toes wet, better to say, in that marketplace and in that regulatory environment, the further this is actually moving away. And personally, I think that an electric aerobatic airplane would be quite something, because you could reduce the noise, which is the biggest enemy of the sport. And you could build something that is actually, you know, flies for 15 minutes and then can sit on the ground for 2 hours and recharge. So the usual requirements of big range, etc., don't really apply to a pure aerobatic single-seat airplane. But even this, there's a lot of regulatory and technical hurdles still to overcome, let alone the financial burden to make that a reality. Because essentially what you need to do with the battery, essentially the cost of a battery for a 300 kilowatt airplane right now is about as much as 20 years worth of fuel. And that not everybody wants to shelf that out up front without really knowing what is happening with this battery after its useful life.
Yeah, I don't blame them there. You had mentioned on your slide that you would like to begin to diversify your business. Where do you see it as going?
We are in a very fortunate situation that we have a currently profitable business, and my business partner has quite nicely deep pockets, to say the least. And right now we're looking for opportunities, and we're looking high and wide, and whatever we think makes sense to grow into, we're happy to entertain any discussion about this. We know we will need to get into some strategic partnerships to, in pretty much any direction we do. What we can do pretty much is FAA certification, structure design work, structure certification. I'm not very good with any of the modern propulsion, modern guidance systems, etc. I had very little exposure to any of this. But again, where this goes really depends on the opportunities that are going to be presented or we are able to catch.
Excellent. Let's see, something else just came in here. Are you planning on going to the Reno air races in September, assuming that they are still on?
Yes, yeah, we're going to be an exhibitor, and I'm going to be as a performing pony. I'm going to go up and down as part of the air show as well.
Excellent, excellent. Jim, how are we doing on time? I see some messages going back and forth.
Yes, we are good in time. Brandon said transition, but I think, yeah, actually, we should be going back to the main site now. But I think, isn't it supposed to happen automatically?
No, it won't happen automatically. So, okay, excellent. So, Philip, thank you very much for sharing this with us. It was very informative. For our participants, thank you for attending here. If you would like to go ahead and leave this room, then you can return to the main page where you'll be able to click on another session here. So we're going to have a second session after this, and you can attend a different group. On the bottom right-hand corner, there's a leave button, and you can click on that, and that'll take you out, and then you can return to that page. Thank you all. We appreciate you staying here. And if you have any questions, you want to hang around for another minute, you're welcome to do that. But we're going to be transitioning into the next session. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right. So we still have about 30 participants with us. Some of them are probably coming in. For those of you just joining us, we'll just give it a moment here, and then we'll kick off the next session in just a moment.
Yeah, I forgot we're not in breakout rooms. That's why it doesn't happen automatically.
Right, right.
Yeah, okay. Good. Yeah, we had pretty good turnout, roughly 48 people in that breakout.
Yeah, that's excellent. And I was watching as Philip was speaking. Philip, I think you were engaging because we retained almost everybody who came to visit you, which is very good.
Rising. All right. Do you need me for anything else?
Yes, we're having one more session, so we're going to do this one more time. Are you still good on time?
Yeah. So am I supposed to do the same thing? What does another session mean?
Yeah. So this will again be about 25 minutes. And so we'll just do the same exact thing. May ask you some of the same questions, but it will depend on the feedback that we get and some of the questions that come in through. One of the things I would like to ask you about is your interaction with the FAA. And that's probably something that we'll explore a little more during this session. I think probably be helpful to others on here.
Yep. Okay.
Okay. Well, we have 36 participants, so we'll go ahead and get started here. My name is Daryl Gibson. I'm with AFWERX Vegas, and I will be the facilitator today. We're joined with co-facilitator with Jim Piazza in Minneapolis, and he'll be assisting us as well. But today, we're very fortunate to have Philip Steinbach. He is the CEO of Game Composites, LLC. He's located in Bentonville, Arkansas, and they're the developer of the GB1 Game Bird. So he'll be talking about that. He's got some slides to share. This will be roughly a 25-minute session, and we'll start it out with Philip presenting and talking about his development and the exciting things that he's been working on. And then we'll open it up to questions, which you can submit through the chat, which is on the bottom of your screen, and then we'll relay those questions over to him. So with that said, Philip, I'd like to turn that over to you. Your show, buddy.
All right, thank you. So here's the share my screen button again. Make sure I don't have to look at me for too much. So this is the airplane I'm going to talk about. It's a little composite airplane, 2 seats, 1 big engine in the front, can fly up and down, both sides, up or down. Quite a lot of fun, and I'm going to go through very quickly how we got to do this thing. So Gamebird is primarily a competition aerobatic airplane. It's certified by the FAA and EASA in the acrobatic category, which means we have to do quite an extensive amount of structure testing, systems testing, system integration, writing report, justifications, functional hazard analysis, all those kind of fun things. Flight testing comes with it. And I'm going to go through those slides really quick to give you guys an idea of what we've done so far. So we started 2013, which is now scary enough, already over 7 years ago, in this fantastic little container, 2 of us, and then started employing more people. The 2 engineers I hired first had never been near an airplane before, both straight out of university. So there was quite a bit of talking involved to make them familiar with what we actually tried to do. So after a couple of months, we had this image there, which almost looked like an airplane already. And then at the same time started to design the production tooling, which we made then in a slightly more posh facility, and started building parts, tested parts, set up the inventory management system, quality system. Then on some of those pictures here on the top left, that was the entire team up to end of 2016. We're all sitting on an aileron right there. The aileron itself weighs 7 pounds, but we had to test it for a little bit more than that. And first flight, I did the first flight, and I did all the flight tests during 2015. In parallel, we did fatigue testing and damage tolerance testing, which is the image you see on the right. So we designed and built the swivel tree and the hydraulic rig. This test was actually conducted in a university in Sheffield in England. So we rented their test facility with some of their test equipment, but we were responsible and did all the physical setup. Part of this was to develop our own composite material allowables. So without those, you can't really sell anything to anybody, at least when you want to have more than an experimental sticker on it. And as I said earlier on, this airplane is type certified, which means it's in the same category as a Cessna or Beech or Piper or Cirrus, whatever you want to call it. Then we started to go out on the road, show it about. I did Oshkosh 2016 and to 2019 as an exhibitor and in the air show. As you can see, the airplane is quite easy to take apart. So one of our mechanics and I flew to London Stansted, took the airplane apart, strapped it to a pallet, put it in the freighter. Between landing and this picture, the bottom left was about 2 hours. So it was 2 hours work for both of us. Pull the airplane apart, strap it down to the pallet, and get it loaded on, into the big bus heading west. Then we got it back 2 nights later, put it back together, trained a little bit, flew to Oshkosh, did the air show. Quite good fun, actually. Then after this, in October 2016, my kids and I moved to Arkansas, Bentonville, Arkansas, and into their facility that got ready just in time to move in. Then I started hiring here in April 2017 to start getting people used to our composite technology, which is the main reason why I think I'm talking here. So what we're doing pretty well is design and manufacturing of low-cost, mid-volume sized production runs or prototypes. To put that in numbers, to get to the point where we got this piece of EASA paper down there and also backed up by an FAA type certificate, we spent $3.3 million US. That included the entire payroll, and that included the flying prototype and all the production tooling that we're still using today. So these are some of the images along the way, training the guys. We have a big 5-axis machine, 25 by 8 by 6 feet Z in the building, which we use now for all kinds of things. So we can also make prototypes for other people. Other than this, you see the airplane in various stages of construction. Same here, the red and white airplane was the first type certified airplane ever to be produced in Arkansas. That's in California now with a customer. In parallel, we've built up the team, so we are slightly over 40 people today and produce a little bit more than 1 airplane a month and are sold for quite comfortably. So now we start looking into other things to do. Part is developing this airplane in small steps. You can see we put a glass cockpit in. We are thinking about putting an IFR certification on the airplane with all kinds of ancillary systems, because it does have the range. So last year I flew an airplane back from a customer in Idaho. That was an 1,100-mile trip. Took 5 hours, 7 minutes, and I landed with over 50 minutes of gas left in the tank here in Bentonville. And from here to Vegas, for example, is non-stop. It's a little bit over 5 hours. So as a tourer, the airplane is quite nice. I've also sold airplanes to 3 aerobatic teams. One is the Chilean Air Force, the Los Halcones demonstration team, the top left picture. They are using the airplane similar to what the Thunderbirds or the Blue Angels are here in the US, just scaled down to the economy the size of Chile. Then the Red Bull airplane is with a friend of mine in South Africa, who is South African national champion. Then we have an airplane, the bottom right one with the French national team. The bottom left one, the blue and white one, is something I did the first flight with 2 days ago. That's our first airplane going to Canada. And this picture with the group of people, that's about 2/3 of our current team, with some of the guys from the Chilean Air Force during the acceptance flights of those airplanes before we ship them down to Chile. And yeah, this is it pretty much in short of what we've done. Like I said, the airplane does have a type certificate. What that basically means is that we had to develop processes to teach people how to work with composites and make them repetitive. So come out with a repetitive quality. We have a quality system in place. And all these are things that I would say can be spun off into all kinds of things that would be made out of composites, whether that's another flying vehicle, whether this is payload related things. There's all kinds of applications. You guys have all in this place with eVTOL. And if you have any questions, please hit me.
Okay. So we do have some questions coming in, Philip. Thank you for that presentation. First question is, do you envision the possibility of having a new type of aerobatic competition with the performance of the GB1?
Yeah, so the airplane has been flown in various competitions. It will be flown even more so. We did sell a couple of airplanes. I'm currently trying to fly this year's national championships. I've been a German national champion 4 times. I got a silver medal on the World Championships. So yeah, it is as good as anything out on the market today.
That's awesome. Next question is, what existing manufacturing and type certifications and licenses do you bring to the table?
So we have the type certificate for the Gamebird. We have a production certificate for the Gamebird, and we had, which is currently like kind of sleeping, is an EASA design organization. Design organization means we have processes and people in place that allow us to sign off on designs ourselves. I'm a CDE in EASA land, which is the equivalent to a DER for structure, flight test, mechanical systems, propulsion, anything but lightning strike on this airplane. That was the only qualification we had to buy in.
Okay. What is the weight of the only fuselage, just a shell, and what material is it?
So the airplane is all carbon fiber. The whole airplane is 1,300 pounds. One wing with aileron is, so one wing half, you see it's 2 halves, is around 80 pounds, and the fuselage is 120 pounds.
Okay. You mentioned the crew size and time necessary to break it down for transport. What size crew and amount of time are necessary for maintenance? Curious how this might apply to the options we've been discussing.
So we've done annual inspections here on customer airplanes with maximum 2 people in less than half a day. And as opposed to a metal airframe or a welded steel cage or whatever you call it, you just have a fraction of the parts. So there's only a fraction of the things to look at and go wrong. And so a 100-hour inspection essentially is an oil change and a compression check, what you do on any light coming. The airframe is basically just looking at if everything is still in its place and looks the way it's supposed to. but there are no specialized kind of test methods.
Given,
The only other thing I want to point out is that this material is very forgiving in repairs. So we can repair pretty much anything on this thing. And the materials themselves, they can be repaired outside in kind of marginal weather. We've qualified all those repairs. So this is for insurance companies, this is a huge deal because they don't have to ship like broken bits from all across the world to us, and we have to repair them, ship them back. We have qualified field repair design schemes that pretty much anybody can do.
given the typical usage of the aircraft, what's the expected lifetime for these carbon fiber parts?
So currently we're qualified for a 6,000 hour lifetime. We've done fatigue testing based on a very conservative statistics model and LEF factors. After we've completed the fatigue testing, which was 158,000 cycles of 11.8 G, and then 3 plus minus 19 G tests in between, both FAA and EASA has offered us to use a less conventional or conservative model and extend the lifetime to 20,000 hours, but none of the airplane, even the prototype, has less than 1,000 hours at this point in time. So that's nothing we prioritize, but it is possible because we've demonstrated that this kind of material essentially does not really have any fatigue. It's the metal fittings that are, you know, connected to it, but our allowables are very, very conservative.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And how much does this aircraft cost?
The airplane right now is $425,000 US. So it's half of a Cirrus, but twice the fun, and more than twice the fun actually. And yeah, you cruise at 200 knots for over 1,000 miles. You can arrive and still have a lot of fun before you have to land. And over the last few years, it has I had the chance of flying all kinds of interesting airplanes, but if I would need to pick one, it would be this one. I admit I'm slightly biased.
Yeah, I was surprised. You had mentioned, if I heard you correctly, that you had spent 3.3 million to be able to actually develop the prototype, and including labor. Is that correct?
That's correct.
That seems, I mean, that's not a small amount of money by any means, but it seems like a very small amount for what it is that you've achieved. Is that typical?
Oh no, it's very untypical. If you look at Cirrus, they spent over $300 million up to that point. Columbia Aircraft, which has evolved into the Cessna TTX, used a similar amount to the same point. And I'm not aware of anybody who has done that faster and cheaper. So we just overrun the 3-year timeline from project kickoff to type certification by a couple of weeks or months, I think. But part of this was because we were a very small team, we were very efficient. And even though I was the only experienced person on the team, but it has worked out pretty well.
Wow, yeah, that's good. So the question that's come in is, what future designs do you envision in terms of the airframe or non-competition types?
Before I would even look at a new general aviation airplane, I would need to be a lot of very, very good reasons. I'm not sure we would like completely start with another type at all. What we're looking now is to diversify the business into things that are a little less risky. The litigation environment we're in this country is such that I need to be very careful who I sell those airplanes to. If I'm not, you know, we can get into big trouble really, really quickly on all kinds of fronts. So at the moment, we're looking for the next best thing to do, whether that's an airplane, whether that's parts for airplanes, whether that's, I don't know what, is totally open. So we're open for opportunities, and they need to make sense. We're quite careful in evaluating opportunities, but we're definitely looking into pretty much anything that comes across.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that you had also mentioned was getting your FAA certifications and EASA certifications. And I was just curious, with the FAA, what was your experience like in trying to get the certifications, and what advice would you have for anybody who's also doing any interactions with the FAA?
So the FAA is a regulator. Everybody who works for a regulator has to be pretty risk averse to a degree, and knowing that, and that everybody or none of these people would like to jeopardize their pension over being nice to somebody else. The applicant in this case, in this instance, for example, game composites, just you have to do your homework. So if you can't ask these people for solutions because that's not their job, but you have to present a possible solution and then try to sell it to them. And we've been pretty lucky in all instances. I always, in every regulator I've worked with so far over the last 20 odd years, I found people who were enthusiastic and wanted to help and did help and made it happen. But the input and the approach for the potential solutions and the need to give them a good feeling about it, that was all on us all the time. And the expectations that I have an idea and I think this is a good idea and that's why the rest of the world needs to buy in, that's just really not realistic.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. In the development cycle, what were the greatest challenges that you ran into, and did you encounter anything that really kind of surprised you, either on the positive or negative side?
No, I mean, I'm more or less like run my own businesses meanwhile for quite a number of years, and the main challenges have always been people. So the technical side is pretty manageable, in particular in a simple project like we did. I mean, there's nothing new in this airplane. It's this old concept, lightest possible, smallest possible airframe with the biggest possible engine, because it's still a lot of fun. But getting the right team together and keeping everybody on the ball, keeping it and putting people where they can, where they are most efficient, that has always been the biggest challenge. And that's also the biggest challenge with the regulator, to see, to kind of recognize the other person's comfort zone and then act within that framework and make it work. And technically we had some, obstacles, I would call them. I wouldn't even call them like roadblocks, because there really aren't any. There's always a workaround. All you need is time and money, and you need to secure both of those, and then you need the people to work through those challenges, and that's pretty much it.
Mm-hmm. You had also mentioned about your team that I think you had said you had 3 engineers and they had not really had any exposure to aircraft, and I think you'd even said that they were fresh out of the university, or it seemed like they were fairly inexperienced. Was that purposeful? Was that a thing more so because maybe the lack of engineers that you needed? Were they within your price range? What guided you in making that decision, and what did you do to help to bring them up to speed?
So there is really no rule book for general aviation airplanes. I mean, it's a little similar to VTOL. There's also no rule book. A couple of people think they know what it takes. In this instance, I was kind of arrogant enough to believe that I know what I want. So I took bright young kids straight out of university and I showed them one of my previous products. I said, this is what we want to do, just a lot better. And then there was obviously a bit of talking involved and learning to everybody on the table, which worked. I might add that we were in a 400 square feet office, all 7 of us, most of the time, which kind of eliminated any chance of loss of communication anywhere. And the other side of this is that if you take somebody out of a big experienced company, that it comes with the ballast of working in this particular environment. And I'm personally a believer in small and nimble teams that can react to challenges and have a motivation to do so. And we didn't overpay, but we also didn't underpay. But I don't think that any of us left the office with less than 60, 70 hours a week at any given point during this project. And that was not because I'm like an enthusiastic slave driver. This is really because the guys got very, very engaged. And I'm also a believer that if you give people responsibility, that they grow up to it to meet the demand. And that's been, the clever people have been absolute key to make that work.
That's really amazing. And that's a great lesson. And speaking of lessons, I think we have just a few more minutes before the transition here. Are there any lessons learned or just things that stand out to you that you would like to share to our group?
And the lesson learned is I like what I'm doing, and that's why I'm 46 now. I hope I can do that another 30 years at least. You know, the reason why I did this, because I think I have a halfway decent idea of what I wanted. If I would personally start to do an electric VTOL, I couldn't do it because I have really very little idea of electric propulsion or the control systems that are required. I'm kind of a bit of an aerodynamics nerd and like that as a sport. But you know, if you feel like this is your calling, then just go for it. And persistence is key. I mean, I left school when I was 16, and I've been more lucky than good on a very big number of occasions, and I feel quite fortunate to be here today. You know, alive and being able to do all the things that I can do now, despite, you know, the no real formal training on this. I've repaired airplanes, flown airplanes, done all of that stuff on the low end, and just really never gave up, and you know, somehow it worked.
It's awesome, and you've achieved something that I think is really amazing here. We really appreciate you sharing this with us, and want to thank you for your time. This has been Philip Steinbach with Game Composites LLC. And at this point, we're going to ask that everybody transition back to the agilityprime.com page. You can leave this group by pressing a red leave button on the lower right-hand corner of your screen. And thank you to all the participants who came in and joined us today. Thank you and have a great time. Enjoy the rest of Agility Prime. Philip, thank you so much. It was awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you,
all
sir.
have a good day.
You too.